Peace, y'all. My name is DW. My pronouns are they, them.
Peace. I'm Kinga. My pronouns are she, they. We're counterculture educator. We help creative leaders turn around the culture of their communities, one authentic relationship at a time through community engagement, artistic expression, self-care, and play.
I told you, you always do it so lovely. I always forget. I forget. Like, what is it that we do again?
Thank goodness. Lives in me.
Right. Thank goodness for you. Right. So we are here doing our counterculture conversations with the homies because we decided that we have really dope conversations with the homies, and now we wanted to film them so y'all can have some of this goodness. So welcome to the joy. And before we get started, I want to do a land acknowledgement, which is just acknowledging that we are on Nipmuc, Pocumtuck, Pocumtuck, and Wabanaki land. We want to introduce our homie who is doing some amazing, beautiful, beautiful work. And we're so excited to chat with you today. Oh my gosh, I'm amped because it's just like, wow, we really have really dope people that in our lives. And so it's just, it's a gift to have people in our lives. So we know you as Aisha, but we got to tell the world who you really are. Please tell the world, do not be bashful. As I said before, I will go in. So please tell the world who you are.
Yes. Hello, everyone, and lovely friends. I guess I should also say I am coming from Lenape territory because that's important, back out here in New York. But yeah, I am Aisha Jordan. She, her, hers are my pronouns. I'll try not to be bashful, but it's probably going to sound a little rehearsed. But I am a content producer. I'm an actor, a Blerd enthusiast. I'm a writer, and I write and produce content that highlights women of color in media and in the entertainment industry. But I come from theater, so starting in those theater backgrounds, going into film and TV. I am about Black nuance and the nuances of Black experience and those intricacies in Blackness, and the ones that the industry likes to ignore and look over. And I really like pushing those into people's faces and letting the world know that Blackness is not just one thing. It's many things. And it can be from you associating with the show Pen 15 to then also associating with the shows like The Wire. So it's a gamut, and I like to show that. So I produce articles, I do digital content, my web series, #The Show is out there. Please watch season 1 is out there. Okay. Hopefully you think it's funny. I also have a podcast called Two Nerds and an Actor where we review TV and movies because we're hilarious and we think our inputs are hilarious, and you probably think they're funny too. But yeah, and then I also write for Black Nerd Problems. So definitely check that out. It's an entertainment site all for the Blerd. So that's me.
I love that. I
had so much that happened. But I want before we get there, do you have anything to say before we get into this joy?
No, let's get into it.
Something that brought you joy this week.
Yeah.
So something that came up for you that brought you joy this week.
So this week, I thought about this earlier in the week, and I think it still holds true, is that because I'm so ingrained in like entertainment and media right now that the Emmys really brought me joy. Obviously, there were some things that the Emmys could have brought me more joy that it didn't, but I was super, super excited for like Uzo Aduba, for Zendaya, for Yaya, for Regina. Like, it just gave me so much life. Like, even when Zendaya was coming up, I was like, I really hope that she wins. And then, like, you know, they're like, oh, nominated. And it's like saying all the names. I'm like, oh, man, she's not going to win. I was like, dang, up against some heavy hitters. Like, my goodness. But then she won. And I was like, yo, what? But also that, like, I don't know if anybody watched it because nobody ever watches, like, award shows anymore. But it was super cute because we're in quarantine. Like, everybody was at home with their freaking families. And it was just so amazing to see, like, Uzo Aduba being like, Mom, I won! I died when she did that. Like, I died. And it's just like, someone won and they were just like, oh my God. And then you hear in the background people going, because like in another room, they're like seeing it happen. And I was like, this is way more heartfelt than like the red carpet and the gowns and the, oh, who are you wearing? You know, like, I just hope the Emmys keep doing that.
I love that.
Word.
I missed it. I don't watch award shows, but now I want to because that sounds amazing.
Honestly, like no one watches them anymore except for me, and that's cool. But like this one was so different. I say check it out. Like it's actually on Hulu, so like you can look in.
Yeah, no, I'm going to the world tells us what happens. Like I'll go on Instagram and be like, oh, here's a clip. Right. I can't be reliant on that. Like that's not where I get my news from. Right. Like, oh, this is what's happening. Oh wow, that's like I'm not just going to get my news, but in Emmys, like seeing a meme and the fire. Can't think. Okay.
Oh my God, that fire thing. Yeah.
Fire going off. Okay. Right. But see how I know? All right. Kinga, something that brought you joy this week.
Oh, I'm next. Okay. Well, actually, to be honest, today the weather is bringing me so much joy because it is warm enough that I went outside and realized I needed to put on less clothing. And that's my favorite thing to do. So I honestly I'm feeling so blessed right now by the warmth of the sun and wanting to spend more time outside today because the cold has been coming and I'm feeling some anxiety about it. I usually do, but this year it's more so, and with the pandemic and everything else, literally everything else that's happening in society and politics and life. Whew, the cold coming on is feeling like a whole gate closing. So I'm really taking every moment I can to be in the sun. And today I did some yoga in the sun and it felt amazing.
So
right. 100% agree.
That was like the highlight of my week.
I watched you do yoga in the sun. But it wasn't my highlight for the week, but it was close. My highlight, what I'm really learning to appreciate even more is walking and waking up. And I don't know if it's because of I do know. It's where I am in life and what is happening and knowing that. And so I'll just be specific about like uprisings and people, Black people showing up and co-conspirators showing up, right? And just the reality of the problematic systems and structures and how they don't serve anybody but who they're made to serve. And so when I think about walking, to me is this a gift now, not only because of my injury and being able to walk again after a torn Achilles and just like getting down the stairs, a double torn Achilles, right? So, and then getting down the stairs and it not hurting, but then also just being able to wake up and enjoy that and not be constantly in fear of like my life or if I go to work, how am I going to be treated at work? Like, are people going to acknowledge my humanity? Am I going to have to combat with these different things? So I'm just, the gift of walking and the grace of just being able to get up feels like a small thing, but it's such a huge thing, that I'm thinking about more and more. So that is my joy for this week.
Yes, Ashe. That is like, oh God.
I just want to say before we get started, I noticed I started to raise the roof. Why did I do that? What generation is that? Raise the roof.
I don't know. I do it all the time. I'm like,
where did this come from? Why did I just start doing that?
I think probably I was trained young in middle school. Yeah.
Was there this song, Raise the Roof? Isn't there a song that says like the 90s?
To be honest, I don't know a song. I just know the action and the saying, Raise the Roof.
I was like,
it was like such a joke, but I feel like it became something really serious for me. Like I do it all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. So
like, you celebrate. You're like, yes.
I know. And it's funny too, because like I raise it with my shoulders. Like my shoulders are like raising the whole roof right now. Why am I not using this?
Okay. From the, your thighs, you gotta push.
Yeah, exactly. Use your legs.
Right. Yeah. Like no, that was shoulders, and I'm like, oh, my back kept bouncing right now.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna bring it back. Right. So I just admit, it's like, I just got locked in a generational thing. Did I get locked in my generation?
How about it?
No, it is what it is.
I'll probably do it like 5 more times in this conversation.
Right.
For sure.
So yeah, I want to get, so there's so many things that you were talking about, and like, let's get into it. Can you tell us just a little bit more about your history, how you even got into production? And the reason why I want to say that in general is because I'm catching my words, that's what I'm looking off, is I'm thinking, when I think about your work, it's really amazing because you're making decisions, right? And holding on to like what it means to be making decisions and to be in your body, you know, and what comes with that, right? So I like that journey and exploring that. I'm just really interested in, please just go ahead.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that, because for anybody who's listening, context, we both know Aisha from growing up, and we were all part of a youth and theater and activism organization together, experience. We were all kind of in at different times, but with that being said, I'm familiar with your background of like how you got into theater, but I'd love to hear more about it from your perspective and how it brought you and your whole experience of to where you are right now.
That is an awesome question because, yeah, I mean, as you all know, like theater really is my heart. Like it was like my home, is where I lived and I played. And I think I started to, as I began wanting to know more about it, I wanted to know how it comes together. Like everything happened, like when we were kids, we were in 2050 and you would just be like, okay, I have to be here, I have to do that. I have tech, we have the, you know, and I was so much more interested in like, how in the hell does this happen? How does it all come together? And then you get to make art. So I kind of started there, seeing more what happens behind the scenes. And then even in high school, like being in plays, I was on set crew, you know what I mean? And also acting. So I was getting the chance to see every aspect of what makes a show. And I loved it. I wanted to do more, and I wanted to do it with my friends because I thought we were awesome artists. And, you know, so I started, you know, with 2050 Legacy, doing a lot of work there. And it was really hard. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done to date in my life, even now, with like all the hats that I wear. But I also started to feel like the process became something else. And I started to lose kind of that homey feeling I had around the process of theater. Not to say I wouldn't do it again, obviously. It's still my background, it's still things I love to do. But I realized that I wanted to make things come together, but I didn't want to do it in theater. Like if I was an actor in a play, I was down. I would go be in that play. And so I started to think more about, you know, TV and film acting. And it was like, okay, how do I do that? How do I move into that world? Obviously, I took a class at Stella Adler, you know, those kind of things that actors do, got headshots, and learning about what is that process for film and TV when it comes to acting. And it's so much more immediate.
Can I pause you real quick? I just want to say in general, because you're talking so much. There's like no.
Don't
meaning like you're saying so much, right?
Yeah.
You're saying so much. And when I'm thinking about a person who's never walked down that road before, and how you're talking about getting these classes and stuff like that, for someone who is looking at this is like, well, what's 2050? What's 2050 Legacy? What class is that you're talking about? Because you are such an important figure, right? And the work that you're doing is so important, and the things that you're highlighting is so important, right? So what kind of path does that even look like to be on the path that how did Aisha get there, right? What classes, and so can you clarify a little bit more about what classes did you take that got you specifically on this path?
Yeah, no, thank you, because I often like stumble over myself and like think 10 steps ahead. So thank you for pulling me back. Yeah, so when I left like high school after doing, you know, theater and musicals and things like that, I went to the new school. And it's funny because I didn't take like the average path that an actor would take, where it's like, you know, you really want to go to NYU, you want to go to Brown or Columbia or something like that, Yale. Those are really hard schools to get into. And I went to the new school because it was in the city, and I knew I could learn from the city itself, not only just at the new school, but learn from the city. And a great mentor of mine, rest in power, Sekou Sundiata, was, a professor there. And I was like, I'm going to follow him. I'm going to go there. So I was still on the path of, experimental theater and poetry performance, and really wanted to hone those skills. So when I was at the new school, I was taking, the theater classes that were there, but it's very like, I don't know if you know, the new school was all born out of protest. That it was like the school didn't believe in how things were going in the country back in the 70s. And this is specifically Eugene Lang College, because the new school has like a bunch of schools under it. And they made a school. They're like, this is for liberals, this is for dissenters, this is for people who want to go against and create new things. So I went there. So you might imagine their arts program is not a traditional, like, this is where you learn how to act, this is where you learn, like, so all my
I had the itch. Like, that also means something different too. So I'm curious. That's why. Okay, keep going.
So it's just like everything is experimental, so whereas you would go through like a 2-year or 4-year program learning how to do certain methods, learning how to, like, Stanislavski, Meisner, all those things, I didn't get that. So it was like, we're going to do this really experimental piece that's by this French guy who was a revolutionary, and like, you don't know who they are. And then they're like making you do weird things along the walls and like rolling around on the floor.
That's my stuff.
That's my stuff.
So it was very different, but I also enjoyed it because, one, my professor, Zishan Uguru, she's from Turkey, is phenomenal. Like, you will argue with her. Like, I learned to step back and just do whatever she says, because in reality, it's going to make you get something in your body that you would never have explored. And it was weird shit. We'd be like in a room and she's like, now chase Aisha. And we're running. Now chase Kyle. We're running, chasing, like, weird stuff. And like, people who didn't agree with her would be like, I don't want to do that. And then like, you did not want to see the argument that came from those. I was always like, just do it, man, just do it.
That's the moment though? Like, that's the moment of when, like, you're talking about, like, what does it mean to someone's telling you something, but they're not telling you the end point? They're just saying, you just got to trust me here. You just got to trust that I know. Right. And I feel like that's building another muscle. Like, I don't know if that's a trust muscle, but like building something else in you to be like, okay, I have no idea where you're from, but I'm going to trust. And so as you continue, you trusting in that person, be vulnerability. That's what it is I'm looking for. Allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Right? So you being vulnerable brought you somewhere else that you never expected. I just wanted to note that. Continue, please, a minute.
No, like 100%. And that's why I'll never forget her. And I continue to like go see her and work with her. She does like this alumni night, and I didn't do it last year, so I'm sure she's pissed at me. But like, it was that relationship that, like, we did one-on-ones, because I continued to take her classes throughout my 4 years. Like, she did a directing for actors class, and I was like, yes, can I do it? And she was like, yeah. I found out I'm not good at directing, so that's good. I learned that early. I can't like have a vision and like tell people what to do. I'm like, yeah, that seems good.
But it's so funny. The point that you're making of learning what you're good at not doing
is so important. Yeah.
That was like a big journey. I was like, okay, good, check, not good at that one. Someone else will do that part.
Yeah. It puts you in the right direction. Like, oh, not that way, go this way.
Yeah. So like I did, and we would have one-on-ones with her. They would just be like, she's like, okay, I like the way you did this, but just do this. And it's like completely weird. And you're like, I don't understand. And you're just like, all right. Like, giving in allowed you to understand that, like, it opened my mind to so many other imaginations, like so many other things I could tap into, and like thinking outside of myself. So yes, thank you, Zishan, if you watch this. But yeah, once that happened, I started, with 2050 during that time, 2050 Legacy, and just trying to implement all the things that I had learned to try to help this happen as well. And, you know, it was trying because 2050 came with a lot of other people as well, a lot of other people's energies and feelings, and not just like the people who were working with us, it was the people who knew of the work as well, you know. And I think I was not capable of holding that at all times. And it taught me, like, it's not just like, okay, the things you like to do and you want to figure out how these things work. It's expectation, it's the responsibility, and it's failing, you know. And I learned, everyone's like, oh, learn from your failures. Yeah, I mean, I learned a shit ton from that one, like so much that, you know, learning what you're not good at, that was like the biggest lesson, the things I wasn't good at. And then also learning how to employ other people to do the things they're good at. So it's like, you are good at, and so now when I run other things, like, you know, I'm sure we'll get into it in a little bit, like my podcast series, things like that, people are really into doing everything themselves. Like, oh, you know, oh, we don't have this, I'll just do it. Oh, I'll just do it. And I'm like the number one person to be like, no. If you don't have to do it, let's get someone else to do it. And those are like 100% of the fights that I have with my co-creator, my brother. He's like, oh, I'll just do it. And I'm like, no.
Sorry, it's bringing up so much. I'm gonna go, let me let you talk.
You sure?
Yeah.
I was like,
no,
go ahead.
because it's just saying, it's bringing up like the whole thing when we talk about what does it mean to like take care of everything, like the caring, and what does that mean being in your body, specifically being in your body, right? So the world, we may see as a Black femme, right, moving in the world, and so that means that you are of service to other people, right?
Yes.
You are here to provide service, right? And so when I think about that, and I think about your trajectory of having to hold all these things, even though you didn't want to hold them, right? And then looking at you getting to this place, and then even like when we talk about imposter syndrome, right? And like how you get from doing all of these like beautiful things and holding all of these wonderful spaces and doing all these creations, and now you're like, and then we're here, then we get to this imposter syndrome, like what goes on there, right? So as we talk about your journey, like I start thinking about that, and want to give you space to just continue to elaborate on what you're talking about. But that came to mind.
No, that's so much of what it is. I was holding a lot of things that were not mine, but I felt like if I dropped it, like that's it. There's nothing to be done. No one's going to do this. It's going to be terrible, and it'll all be my fault as well. So it was a long, hard process of learning how to let that go. And I'll be honest, like, it wasn't just me, you know, it was my friends telling me, it was like people close to me telling me, and, you know, it's always hard to listen to those people. So you're going to keep doing it. You're going to keep doing it until something happens that everything those people said to you makes sense, and now's the time, you know? So we had done the Fringe Festival in New York for theater, and it was like, I would never do the Fringe Festival again. I would, on any project, it was really hard. There's so many like rules, and like no matter what happens, it's your fault at any time, and it's just, it was way too much. So we did one other show after that because we had actually landed a residency at the Tank, and I was like, this was good. We're done here. And you know, no one, I think, objected. It was like a perfect moment to just say, like, we did it. And honestly, it came about because one of our stage managers during the show that we did at Fringe, she was attending PACE. And I was like, oh, you're at PACE? And she was like, yeah, I'm in their devised theater program. And I was like, there what?
Yeah.
And it's a theater program that's like 2050. Like, you take current themes and you create original works, and that's your like track in college. And I was like, well, it seems like mission accomplished.
Love that. Like, oh, well, we're already on track, so
yeah,
job well done, folks.
Letting go. Wow.
Yeah,
That's really cool. And I
Yeah.
just think like what, you know, you talking about the letting go, like, man, had you not done that, then Two Nerds and an Actor and hashtag the show and all the writing, like the reviews and stuff like that wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Woo, my
Yeah.
body is just shaking because I'm so excited. Oh, tell us more.
It's true. Like, so after that, I, you know, wanted to get into the TV and film world. So I just literally looked up Stella Adler is like this school that I knew of when I was in college, because Stella Adler is a big part of just acting for actors at all. They like have method that they do. And this school was built out of that method. So it's named after Stella Adler. And they give classes for like anyone. So you can just pay and go to the class. And honestly, it's funny because there's always like a lot of international students in the classes with you. So people are coming from like Romania and like Russia and like all these places that you're like, oh, and you just want to be an actor in the US. Okay, cool. So like you're there with all different types of people. And I remember wanting to take this on-camera class just because I had no idea what that even meant, when it means to like be on camera, right? There are obviously specific things that you have to do and know about to be in that field. And it's really about like the technical, you know, I can get into a character. I've been doing it in theater, but what does it mean to do it in front of a camera? So I took this on camera class, and it was hilarious because the guy who was teaching it knew my brother. He was like, oh yeah. He was like, I know your brother. We did work together and like all that stuff. And I was like, oh, all right. But he was funny because he did a lot of work in TV and film. And when teachers are like that, they like to tell stories about their, like, oh, when I was working with, you know, Tracy Morgan and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, cool. So what is this thing called?
So what do we need to learn here? Because
Yeah.
paying some good money.
Yeah. But I learned in that one like the specifics of like, you know, hitting marks and auditioning when it's like when you're auditioning for TV and film. But I wanted to go on to the second level, so I did another one. And a lot of these are taught by casting directors, which is really important when you're doing TV and film, because you want to know what the casting directors are looking for and how to work with them, because those are the ones who are sending it to the producers. They're sending your stuff to the directors. So if they don't see in you something, they're going to be like, pass.
Mm-hmm.
So like getting their insights is always great. But, you know, in that time, I also realized how much TV and film industry is a business.
Mm-hmm.
Like and like actors too late notice it too, where you pay so much money for headshots. You pay all this money. Oh, this person will guarantee you're going to get this, or you're going to be seen by this agent or that. And it's literally milking people for their money. And then like, they're not in control of what happens to you.
Yeah.
Like they're not. So as I started seeing how the TV and film industry came together, I was constantly thinking about these little jokes, right? So I'm like always writing down these funny things. And if you do know me, I am judgmental and I make fun of people and I think everything is hilarious. So at any given time, like something that would happen to me, I'd be like, that's fucking ridiculous. And I would write it down. And at one point, a friend of mine, I was like, I feel like it would be funny if it was a web series. And he was like, yeah, you should do a web series. And I was like, still like, that's impossible. I was like, yeah, maybe. So like literally for like 2 or 3 years, I'm just writing down these funny ideas. Wow. And in no way in my mind did I believe it could happen.
Wow.
Like, it was just funny things I was writing down because I didn't think I was capable of doing that. And then at one moment, like my friend, like I would tell the ideas to people and they'd be like, oh my God, that's so funny, and like add on to it. So one of the times I was like, okay, I think I should bring more people into this. We were on a cruise, and John, my sister's boyfriend at the time, we're at like one of their nightclubs, right? And this song comes on, and it's like, put your hands up, and he's like, don't shoot, don't shoot.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, it writes itself.
It's not even like,
Wow.
it's whoa, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable that that's real, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Wow.
So that's when it like inside of me, I was like, this is real life. This has to happen. Like, people need to know that we can think like this and why we think like this.
Yes.
So like, I asked him and my friend Mike, and I'm like, do you guys want to write these like skits with me? And they were like, yeah. Like, I just sent an email. That's what it took.
Right.
And it's like, you spend all this time thinking like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. I don't think it's possible. How is that even gonna happen? And it comes down to just sending an email. It's like the littlest thing, because once you do it, it's real.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like,
right. Yeah.
this is happening now. I've sent this email. These people are real, and they've said yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
So,
yeah, I was just talking about this last week or something like that. It's like you have this idea that seems impossible, or even just like an unreachable like dream, something that you can only imagine, and then something happens and it's in your world, and then it just is. Now it's just a part of your world. Now it's just part of your reality. It's like, it's no longer something that you're like really excited about. Like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to me. Like, oh my God, it's happening to me. And then all of a sudden it just is a part of it. It's part of the whole existence.
That, I mean, totally. Like, I was telling Kinga the other day, this is happening. But I was like, I put Toby Nwigwe. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna put this on the calendar because I'm gonna go to his concert. And I didn't know I was going. I just put it on the calendar. And then get a phone call. I get a phone call from a friend. It's like, I bought Toby Nwigwe. She said, what are you doing this Sunday? And I was like, let me check the calendar. And I was looking through the calendar. I was like, oh, it looks like we might be going to see a concert. Right? We don't have tickets yet. Like, are we going to see Toby? And then she's like, oh, did you buy your tickets? No.
She said,
okay,
that's what I was calling you. Because I have a ticket for you.
But I'm like, no, like, talk about writing something, like writing the story of you, like writing the story of, well, I don't know how this is gonna work. I'm gonna take these acting classes and I'm gonna do this. And I believe like that path is really about just, that's your purpose. Like, my purpose is to be these things. I don't know how they're going to make sense, but eventually they're going to make sense. And so now we're here. Are you still impostoring yourself right now?
Oh, all the time. All the time. So yeah, like we're here. I've completed an entire season of a web series that's out in the world, and you know, I'm doing all these things, but it's still very, very real because I'm not where I want to be. I like where I'm at. I like the things I've done. I want to be like here. You know what I mean? I want my show picked up. I want to write for another show. I want to be in another show. So those things, you know, I talk to a lot of people, like mentors of mine, about like, how do I do it? And when you do this, like, you're doing it because you're trying to convince yourself that you can, right? I've noticed that, like, oh, I want the advice and I want to learn and things like that. But I realize it's more about you trying to convince yourself that you are capable of doing this thing. And then in doing that, you learn that no one knows what the fuck they are doing. Literally no one knows what they're doing. They've just done it before you.
Oh, say the word. Say the word. That was like the meme where it's like what entrepreneurs are, really people who are jumping off a cliff and building the parachute on the way down.
100%.
That is such gold, what you just said. Like, that is, you said nobody knows what they, like, literally nobody knows what they're doing. Yes.
Because like I'm a Virgo too, so I believe there are steps. There's a list somewhere. There's something you're supposed to do that gets you over here or over there. And everyone else is like, I did this, but that's probably not what you're gonna do. And you're like,
They're like, no, they're looking at you like, oh, you're the person who's gonna make us all a list. You're that person. So we're gonna tell you all the things that we did when we didn't know what we were doing, but we did them and they worked. So we're gonna tell them to you, and now you're gonna make a list for everyone. Thank you.
But even just listening to you talk right now, it's like, when was there ever a moment that you knew what you were doing?
Right.
And you know what I'm saying? Like, it just sounds like you're just like, I'm just gonna go ahead and do this.
yeah,
And I'm just gonna be fearful and keep going. And so I'm gonna be courageous and make these things happen. But then also, like, listening to the path that you're talking about, it's all the things that you started to, like, it's like you're filling in gaps.
yeah.
Oh, I don't see this here. I don't
Yeah.
see that there. I'm capable of making that. So let's make it. And I just also want to say that your show is gonna get picked up. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's gonna get picked up. It's gonna be amazing. And I'm gonna be like, so Aisha, can I just be like a stand-in on the side? I mean, I don't do all of the extra stuff, but look, I could be right here, mean mugging if that's what you need me to do. But trust, the email will come. like starts with an email, right?
But that's what I do it for. I think, like, you know, a lot of people, well, I guess in the industry as it's been, very white male centric industry, that everyone believes everyone's doing it for themselves, you know. But I don't believe that's in a collective way that, like, people of color, you know, BIPOC people do. It's about our whole community all the time. You know what I mean? So if it is for me, it is for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing my show so I can play every fucking character. I'm doing it so everyone can play all these characters that, like, no one else will let them play.
Yeah.
And I remember we did this one where, like, I just thought it was hilarious that, like, I'm always on, like, diets, right? Like, weird diets. And at my job, they're like, oh, are you not allowed to have that, this or that? So I made this whole sketch about, like, what if this one woman is on a diet at her job and she literally was, like, governing everyone else's food. So, like, she's, like, throwing away people's lunch because she's like, oh, no. And, like, I could have imagined myself doing it, but I was like, I don't really need to be the one. And also, who are the other people? Like, who are the bosses? Who are the coworkers? All this stuff. And we wanted it to be a group of people. And we were going back and forth between this one woman and this one man to play the boss. And we ended up picking this guy, but it was like this dark skinned guy, and, like, he is actually hilarious. He makes his own videos too. Like, we wanted to work with funny people too. We're like, we need you to get these jokes too, so you're not, like, uncomfortable doing it. Like, you need to be able to do this. And, like, he did it great. And then he posts, like, after we're done, he does this whole post. He's like, thanks to, you know, Aisha and Rafi and hashtag for believing I could be a boss. And I was like,
Wow.
I was like, and that's right.
Yo, that's
the whole thing.
But that's like, even when you talk about, first of all, when she slaps the cookie out the guy's mouth, oh my gosh, I gagged. Like, yo, it was like the hearty in the stomach laugh. Yes. I know that story. Like, I know I can't eat, you can't eat. Like, we're in this together. But also, like, the thinking about when you talk about community, right? Just that thought of, even when we're doing this work, like the CCE work, it's not, I'm not doing it because of me. King is not doing it because of her, because it's just innate to be like, I know this story. I know other people are feeling this way. Like, when you talk about empathy and then plugging that into different things. And that's also when we talk about your work. I want to talk about empathy in your work and, like, how you see that in there, because I see it in so many different ways. Just even you having this conversation, like, makes it real for me. That it exists in your work. But can you elaborate a little bit more on how you see empathy and how that's connected to your work?
Yeah. So I don't tell a lot of people this, but, like, I am like an empath, and I think it's easy for me to, like, shut down when other people's emotions are inside of me. So if you ever see me, like, hanging out with a bunch of people and all of a sudden I'm, like, super quiet, because there's, like, emotions happening inside me that I don't understand because they're not mine. So it's very, like, it's an entire part of my life, and I'm an experiential learner as well. So the only way I know how to express that is in a way for, like, someone has to feel this too. Like, it can't just be that you see it and you think it's funny. I need you to feel like it's your story too. Feel like that happened to you, or that could happen to you. And to me, that's like the only way that I can really learn and change and grow. Obviously, there's other ways I can learn and things like that, but it's the most effective. So whenever I am writing my story, or even just something I think is funny, like I'll see something I think that's hilarious, even if it's freaking inappropriate, I'm like, no, I have to do that. And I need people to feel really uncomfortable when they watch it happen, because it is uncomfortable. And then it's also ridiculous. So I need you to laugh at it.
Right.
So it's like that, like I make people a part of the story, even though it's mine. And I don't know if that's selfish or not, but like I feel like it has to happen, you know, like.
Okay, yeah, like, 'cause for me, I think this is like an ongoing conversation about art, and I've had this conversation with a friend of mine about what art is and why we do it, why it's important. And I mean, for me, that's all of it right there. It's you expressing your own reality, your own experience, or your own perception, but in a way that it reaches other people for them to know what that's like, or feel it, or to feel like a part of it, or for it to spark something in them, or to create an idea that they didn't have before. I mean, I think that for me, that's what art is. It's a communication. It's a conversation, you know, and it's a conversation that lasts forever. It started at the beginning of time, which, you know, when was that really, you know, and then and then it continues on forever, and it's all a part of the conversation. And it goes back to even the idea of sampling, or even stealing, and where the line is, because we're all always inspired by something that we saw that's now going to have us create something else that hopefully will inspire another person to create a whole new thing. And sometimes it's not a work of art the way that we see art. Sometimes it's an idea, or like a business idea, or you know, like a concept or a theory or whatever. But that is art. I think that's the purpose of art, and that's why for me art is activism. It just is. Like, there's no way to separate the two, because you are expressing, you're saying an idea, and you're sending that out into the world for it to be picked up however people are going to pick it up. And I feel that that's really important, like that intention that you put behind your message, so that, because people are going to interpret it however they're going to interpret it. So the intention you put behind your message as to, this is what I hope people feel, experience, you know, realize within my art. And then you have no control from there. You just gotta let it go.
That's like 1,000% the reason I do anything I do. And I try to surround myself with people who will push it further too. So like in working with like my brother, it's like probably also the hardest thing to do. We're siblings, so like our arguments are real and intense sometimes. But he is always like on that Key and Peele, let's take it to space, you know, like, and then like a black hole opens up, and like, you know, like, and I'm always like, where are we?
It's like, that is literally King is always talking about me, like, I'm like, literally, where did we just go? How did we get here, and how do we go back home? But the thing is, like, you know, but my thought is kind of like, you have to take it beyond all the things, so you can imagine. It's kind of like the Afrofuturism thought of, you have to imagine the futures. The same thing is like even abolition. You have to imagine the spaces. You have to imagine what they look like, and without the imagination, you can never get there. So I go awry. I do go awry sometimes, but then when you mention your brother and now you in the dynamic, I'm like, it's needed, because
exactly,
you have, like, having that, and then having a person be like, okay, bring that on back here. This is how we're gonna do piece by piece. And you know, people will look at me and be like, come on now, go back. Right? And
can we just visit back here for a second, just so we can ground ourselves in what it was we started in?
Right. You're like, maybe we'll go there, but hold on a second.
Yeah, exactly. That is my whole thought.
Let me get my bearings.
Oh my gosh, that is it. That's hilarious.
But yeah, and it's like, it's a beautiful and tumultuous relationship that has to happen so that one, he doesn't do everything himself, and that also my ideas become more than just what they are. Because everything I do is very grounded in things that like have happened to me. So it'll be like, you know, for instance, I have this one called Ratchet Revolutionary that is like, you know, they go to this party after a protest and these two white people are talking about where they've been arrested and stuff. And like, you know, those kind of things have happened to me. You know, I'm very much in an activist space because of, you know, my husband's a peace poet. So wherever I'm going with them, it's going to be that circle. And obviously there's a lot of white people in those circles, you know. And we went to, like, they had gone to a protest and they're like, oh, they're having this party afterwards. Like, do you want to go? And it's this guy, he's the best. Like, he's a white guy, but he's like so chill, the best guy. And I was like, yeah, let's go to his house. We're in Brooklyn, some type of loftish space, I want to say, where I walk in and I'm like, is this an art studio? Is this where you keep your bikes? I don't know. And then you come into the living room and they are playing like the most ratchetest music. And then they're just like sitting on the couch, like drinking and talking. And I was like, I feel like this is wrong. I feel like this shouldn't be happening.
Like, so it's confusing for sure. It's confusing for sure. You're like, wait, what is the situation I'm in right now?
Right. I wanted to elaborate like the density of that too, right? Of being on the couch, you know, like when you walk in, and I'm specifically referring to the show now. When you walk in and you're sitting on the couch and then people are having these really, it's almost like these light conversations where people are also like dying. You know, and people are also like, jail means something so different to you in being in a white body than it does to me. Like, please don't ever put me in that car. Like, it's like, don't even grab me. I don't even want to be grabbed. I don't even have the opportunity of being bailed out. Like, I don't even want to be in that situation because once my body gets taken, I don't know in what condition it's going to return.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to show in that, like, I am looking at these people and I'm like, how can you have a conversation like this? And it's because that's your life. And I wanted to show like that is their lives. You know what I mean? That exact conversation didn't happen. You know what I mean? It wasn't like word for word, but things like that are being said around me. And I'm the one who's like, are you kidding? Like, you're not dead. You know what I mean? So like, I wanted the ridiculousness of that conversation to be kind of like the highlight, right? Like you can have these conversations and they're real. You know what I mean? We're laughing right now, but that's real. And like all my like activist friends were like, oh my God, that was too close to home. Like,
yes. When I watched it, I was like, it was like this painful thing. It's almost like when we watch the firecrackers or gunshots.
Oh, that
little skit. And I was like, ooh, it kind of stings, right? It kind of stings to watch because I know what you mean, right? But then, and so I'm just saying, like, I'm very thankful to be able to watch it work. It's truly a gift, right? It's a gift to watch it and be like, wow, you see this person in your life, you know, and then you watch this trajectory happen, and then to be able to watch this show and kind of see, like, even with you and Rafi just doing these things, these amazing things, and be able to embody the experience, those experiences of community, and then provide the invitation to be a part of it, to feel welcome into it, and bring people into it, right? So bring people like, this role is for somebody. I can play this role, but this role is for somebody. It's like, that space and that thought process alone is changing. It's going to change a whole, like, it's going to change a whole way of being within the industry. And that's what I'm saying.
It's like,
you're gonna get
like goosebumps, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying, it's like it's inevitable. It's inevitable because you're gonna get picked up because your vision, the vision is there, and it's right now. Like, when I mean the time is now for a change and shift to be happening. The time is now, and you're already doing the work, right? And so it's just like it's such a gift to be like, I'm in this conversation, and you're doing this amazing work. Right.
And that's like our number one goal too. So like, it's even though I was telling my dad, like, he's watched the season 2 and he's like, I don't understand how you paid the actors. I don't understand how you did this. And it's like, our vision is so clear. Like, the number one thing is we want our people to be in front and behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what we want. And the world is seeing that now too. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't tell the world to do that, but I was like, I know I need this. I know everyone around me needs this. So there was this grant that was available for, you know, women in the industry. So it was like theater, film, like a bunch of different areas specifically in New York. And I read that and I was like, we're going to get that.
Yes.
I was like, I don't know, like, we'll see. Like, you know, I've been applying for grants for like 10 years and I've seen lots of no's, but I was like, no, this one, every single box we check, plus we're Black.
Yeah. Yes.
And it was like, I was like, we're gonna get this. So I asked for the max amount, which was like $20,000.
Right.
And I got the email that they had awarded us $16,000, and I was like, we got it. He was like, what? I was like, I told you. I knew we were gonna get it. And the funny thing about it is, like, a friend of mine who, like, we've always had our backs throughout, like, our trajectory as artists. We were in, like, a program together and stuff like that. She was on the selection committee. And, like, when it was announced, I was like, oh my God, did Kyria do this? So as soon as it announced, she's like, I can finally tell you that when yours came up, I excused myself. She was like, I excused, because I was like, I'm too close. This is a friend of mine. I shouldn't be a part of this process. She's like, I came back in the room and they had unanimously decided that yours should be.
Oh, I just got chills all down my body.
I was like, you were in the room?
Oh my God.
Look, I'm gonna say this and I think
beautiful.
you might appreciate the way that I'm gonna say this. You are inevitable, in the words of Thanos. Right? You are inevitable, right? So it came to me and I was like, oh, Two Nerds and an Actor would probably appreciate this. Aisha would probably appreciate this. You're inevitable. And I want to, like, just because there's so much here, I wanted to take the time to wrap us, but also say to you, like, is there anything that you feel like when people are looking at this video, or when people walk away, like, anything you want people to walk away with? Like, if you give them a nugget of goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone should just do it. That sounds so corporate. Like, just do it. You know, even with, like, my podcast, we used to sit after movies and just talk about the movie and say funny things with a group. And they were like, man, I would listen to you guys talk about movies all the time. And I just went to, you know, my co-host France and Mike, and was like, let's make a podcast, Two Nerds and an Actor. They were like, okay. And we recorded the first episode on my phone. And then, you know, we were like drunk and did it. And then we're like, okay, what do we do next to do it better? And, like, we listened to another podcast and we're like, their podcast sounds like shit. We need to sound good. We had to, like, get microphones, you know? So it's like all those things. And then trust in what other people see in you. Because I actually I do now consider myself a writer. It was just one of those things you had to do to make it come together.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, someone has to write, so I'll write the thing, and then all these other things have to come together too. And, you know, always be yourself out in the world, because then when someone sees it, they want you to do the thing with them. So, like, I was posting, like, my Time Turner from Harry Potter in, like, France's Black Nerd shirt, and they were like, do you want to write with us? And I was like, that sounds preposterous, because I don't write. And they were like, well, just do a guest article and see what happens. And I did, like, the top 5 women killing it in the industry, like women of color in the industry, and it got shared 500 times in the first day it was out. And they were like, I think that this is for you.
Yeah, you know what's so interesting too? I was reading one of your articles. I was like, I didn't know Aisha was a writer. like I didn't know. But then also now when I go to look for reviews, I'm like, the person I trust the most, I'm gonna go to look at Aisha's review, because I know that their experience of being in their body may be a little bit more diverse or very more vast than what I'm gonna see in other reviews. So I don't, like, especially if I'm watching other films that have like diversity in their cast, I wanna make sure I have like a film review from somebody who has that experience, right? And walking in that world, because it's a very different take. Like Hennessy can be very comical, or Hennessy can be like very dreary, depending on who's reviewing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's just such a, but the example you get what I mean.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to.
Well, I'm curious, just to kind of bring a couple things together. Because you've talked about the imposter syndrome, and especially how it came up in ways that you're like, I'm not a writer. I could never release this web series. And now here you are, not only with the web series, you've got the grant, you know, like have all this affirmation coming from your content that's being put out and the way that people are receiving it. How does that come up for you now in terms of when imposter syndrome creeps up, or you're feeling like you're not the one and you've had all this affirmation? Is there anything that you've learned through that, or that you use now to kind of help you, you know, remind yourself of your own power that you've experienced now over the last few years?
Yes, I will say two things. Both of those, the reason I can push past it, and it sounds bad, but it's because of other people, right? I myself am still experiencing the imposter syndrome, so I'm not going to tell myself I am capable of doing it until someone else tells me. So a friend of mine, Liz Acevedo, she's written like the Poet X and like, you know, New York Times bestselling. I was interviewing her, and everything she was saying about being afraid was always like sticking with me. Like she was talking about how she would have like stage fright. Like we've been friends forever and like did poetry together and like performing. So when she was saying she had stage fright, I was like, that's impossible. Mm-hmm. But like all these things she was afraid of, she followed. So it's one, following the fear. I am afraid that I can't do those things. I am afraid that someone would be like, I don't know, but I want to let them tell me that. You know what I mean? I said that to like my sister. She's like, oh, I'll apply for this job. I don't think I'm capable. I don't think I have the credentials. I was like, well, let them tell you no.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tell yourself no first.
Yes.
Right.
So like that. And then another friend of mine who works at HBO, again, this was me trying to convince myself I can do it. I was like, how do I do this stuff? And she was like, you know, I have imposter syndrome. When I got my job at HBO, I'm looking around like, oh my God, someone's gonna find out I'm not supposed to be here. Like, I'm not the one. And she's like, and then you look around and you say, these people don't know what I had to do to get here. And I probably had to do way more than them to get here. So like, you are where you're supposed to be, and you did the work you needed to do to get there.
Ooh.
And so those are like the quotes that I try to keep with me every time I'm like, I don't think that I could do that, or I'm not going to submit to that, or I'm not the one. Those are the moments. Like one, follow the fear, and two, no one knows what you did to get where you are now.
I'll tell you the two that are sticking with me right now from you. You said, don't let yourself say no to yourself. I love that. That's sticking with me. And nobody knows what the hell they're doing.
No one.
No one. I love that. Those are sticking with me. So thank you for those gems.
My heart feels so full.
Yes.
I'm going to close this out with gift giving. So I love this practice that I've learned to carry with me wherever I go, which is the honor of being able to give the gift of words before we leave. And I also want you, before we do the gift giving, I want you to tell, where can we find you? Like,
oh right. You can definitely find me on Instagram. It's just my name, Aisha J28. I'm always on Instagram. Videos are there, but also check out #the show. It actually is a hashtag and then the word hashtag. So
hashtag.
Yeah, hashtag. But you can also find me, Two Nerds and Actor. We're like everywhere any podcast can be. We're there, Spotify, YouTube, all those places. And then at blacknerdproblems.com. You can find all my stuff there too.
All right. Nice. Okay, nice. So the gift of words. So I would describe it as if we were sitting in a room together, in your hands, right? Well, we're not, but I'm just going to describe it anyway, right? In your hands, I put in a word that you would like to give to somebody for them to move through their day. So like a gift of a word that you would like to give to myself or Kinga. And then once you give that gift when we're in the room, I have people when they're ready, they have their word, they open their hands. And then when they have their word, they close their hands so that I know that the word is there. And then we pass it to the next person. So what I'm gonna do now is just ask for us to think about gifts of words that we wanna give to each other. But I'm gonna let you decide who you wanna give your gift to, and then I'll give my gift, because we're not in a circle, so it's real hard to just be like, we're gonna give you a gift right here, right? So if you'd like to give a word to Kinga or myself, you get to decide, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. I will give a word to DW.
Okay, so I'm gonna give my word. Do you wanna give it to Aisha or me?
Aisha's gonna give it to you, so you give it to me, and I give it to Aisha. That's
how
a circle works.
Oh, okay, all right. I see you. Okay.
Circles still exist even when they're not physical.
Like,
That's
we're
right.
in a room together.
Even when we're not in a circle, you put the circle around them.
That's so
right.
good.
Okay, so that's good. All right, so let me think of my word, the gift that I want to give to you. Hold it. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay,
Do I go first?
go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna give you the word deserving. Or do I expand on it?
You can.
Oh no. Okay. I just mean like deserving of everything that should and will come to you. That we are all deserving, and to remember that and to be determined because we deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thank you. King, I'm going to give to you the gift of process. And just to remember that when I specifically think about process with you, is that your process is the part of your greatness. And that always encourage you to continue to do the process, because it helps move me forward, and it's going to help to continue to move the other people you work with forward. And that the way that you process is the greatest gift that you've given to me. And so I want to give it back to you.
Thanks. That's thoughtful. Aisha, I want to give you strength. And I want to give you strength because I want you to like continue to let go of the layers of feeling like you're not the one, and have strength in knowing that it's everything you just said, but it's just feeling like what I want to give to you is knowing that when you're in the room, that's the room you're meant to be in, and that we're all so grateful for the work that you're doing. So just having strength to know that we're not leaning on you, but that we're rooting for you.
I love it. Thank you so much for this. This is like, I have to go back to my other day job now. So this is great.
So I would say, thank y'all for tuning in to our latest counterculture conversations with the homies. And I want to let everybody know, including you, Aisha, including you, Kinga, that you can do it. You belong, and you are most definitely
enough.
Yes, you did it.
Yay! Thank you. I feel like we're gonna be old grannies like this, and our kids are gonna be like, "Why you throw your hands up like that?"
I hope so. I'll weird all the little kids out with this.
So good.